to sex crimes, including child prostitution. Now, officials of the website have told us that they are vigilant about monitoring the content of their ads and promptly report potential abuses to the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children. Meantime, law enforcement officials say criminals use these types of websites as a tool to target their victims. Take a look. 4 women found dead in less than a week, their bodies stuffed in the trunks of cars. Detroit police won't say if it's the work of a serial killer, but they are alarmed by another pattern they've discovered. Detroit Police Chief Ralph Godbee says 3 of the victims had posted escort ads on Backpage.com.
With the vast increase in the utilization of social media and the internet, we must continue to be vigilant in identifying any website which may potentially pose a threat to individuals.
The first 2 victims, Demisha Hunt and Renisha Landers, were found in a car at this abandoned house on December 19th. 2 more bodies were found on Christmas morning, burned beyond recognition. Backpage.com says it reached out to the Detroit police when they first heard about the deaths and are fully cooperating with the authorities. In a statement, the company says, quote, Backpage has now provided law enforcement authorities with computer forensic or other evidence that shows that at least 70 different third-party ads or other postings on at least 22 different websites appear to be or are potentially related to this investigation. We're not aware of any evidence that would indicate which of these 22 websites may have been used by the suspect to establish contact with his victims. Police declined to say if they were also looking into other postings, but they did warn about dangers lurking online.
We felt that it's imperative to alert the public that deciding to meet unknown persons via the internet can be extremely dangerous. We implore people to be careful.
It's not the first time Backpage.com has been caught up in controversy. It's a classified ad service operated by Village Voice Media, owner of a national chain of alternative newspapers. Last year, after intense pressure, Craigslist stopped taking ads for adult services. As a result, those advertisers turned en masse to Backpage.com. A firm that tracks online classifieds, the AIM Group, says Backpage.com generated at least $2.1 million from escort and body rub listings in October alone, a record high. Over the last year, the site earned more than $23.9 million from adult services ads, according to AIM. Critics say Backpage.com is profiting from illegal activity and exploitation.
We're trying to remove the adult section from Backpage.com because it is a breeding ground for human trafficking.
Earlier this month, Julian Tarver pleaded guilty to raping and extorting sex from 2 15-year-old girls he met on Backpage.com. In October, authorities in Massachusetts indicted Norman Barnes for pimping out 2 underage girls, also on Backpage.com. He denies any wrongdoing. And earlier this year, CNN spoke with a 13-year-old who says she was repeatedly sold on Backpage.com for $300 an hour.
If I ran away, I was going to get killed. And if I told the cops, I was going to get killed. And the guys that call you, how old are they? You don't know until they walk through the door. You walk through their door, like, they could sound like they were like 21. You walk in, they're like old and disgusting. And it just points, how many guys were you seeing a day? At that point, like 5, 4.
The National Association of Attorneys General say they know of more than 50 cases in 22 states involving trafficking of minors on Backpage.com. In a letter signed by 51 attorneys general, the group warned, quote, as a practical matter, it is likely very difficult to accurately detect underage human trafficking on Backpage.com's adult services section, when to an outside observer, the website's sole purpose seems to be to advertise prostitution. But Backpage.com says what they do is perfectly legal under the Communications Decency Act and protected by the First Amendment. They say they monitor and screen their listings. They have a no nudity policy and report suspicious listings to the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children. Quote, Backpage.com shares the concerns of law enforcement and the community that every effort be made to stop violent criminals from using the internet to commit their crimes, the company said in its statement. They go on to say, we do our best to provide a safe and legal environment for our customers through aggressive content monitoring and sophisticated content filtration software. Not good enough, say critics. They want the adult ads done away with completely.
There's a section of that, Backpage.com, that is utilized by sexual predators and human traffickers to sell children for sexual purposes. And it has to stop. It's that simple.
Well, the terms these ads use, back rubs, escorts, adult company, are obviously familiar codes that authorities say criminals see as signposts. Ed McNally is Backpage.com's law enforcement advisor. I talked to him a short time ago. Mr. McNally, if you scroll through the adult services ads on Backpage.com, you see clearly people who are advertising prostitution. How do you justify that?
Well, it's really not a question of justifying. It's a question of compliance with the law. People post things on your website that you have no control over, but we live in an extraordinary marketplace of ideas on the internet, and lawful content is protected, especially when it's posted by third parties.
But what you're profiting off, I understand legally under the Communications Decency Act, it's a third-party posting, therefore you're not held liable for it. But one of the terms of use on your website prohibits, and I quote, any ad for products or services, use or sale of which is prohibited by any law or regulation. You've also said that your company is committed on the website to, quote, preventing those who are intent on misusing the site for legal purposes. Isn't prostitution a legal purpose?
Well, first of all, what we're really focused on more than anything is the protection of the people in our society who are most vulnerable. And most of our filters, most of our mitigation efforts, most of our law enforcement efforts are really focused on preventing human trafficking, and especially the most vulnerable, which is children.
And I guess, again, my question, how do you define illegal activity? If you claim your site is, and your site, I mean, it'd be one thing if your site said, yeah, you know what, there's illegal activity going on our site, so what, we're protected by it, that would be one thing, but you're saying you're not hosting illegal activity. And I guess my question again is, how do you define illegal activity? Is prostitution illegal activity?
If you're under the belief that there's someone out there in the government or in the business community that can define which of the classified ads running in the Detroit Free Press today are lawful or not lawful, I think that's an extraordinary challenge.
Well, I mean, I just went on your site and there's some, person whose name I won't even mention with dollar signs in her name advertising herself on your site. Again, I'm asking, how do you define illegal activity on your site? It's a question you seem not willing to answer. Prostitution would seem to be an illegal activity.
The Village Voice has a proud tradition. It was founded here in New York by Norman Mailer maybe 50 years ago. They have always carried adult services in their ads. They've also regularly earned 4 Pulitzer Prizes by standing up to, the big businesses and the government, and they're unapologetic about that.
I'm not making a moral judgment against your company, which is making more than $20 million a year off these adult services ads, or tens of millions of dollars. I'm not even sure the exact figure, but according to figures I've seen as much as $22 million last year, $2 million, I think, in 1 month alone. It's obviously very profitable for you, I get that, but I just don't understand. It would seem to be hypocritical if on one hand you're saying we want no illegal content on the site, and we are not hosting, illegal activity, and yet that seems to be proliferating on your site in the adult services.
Let me cut to the chase. And when you talk to my colleague at the bar, Jeffrey Toobin, later, he'll have his own views. But let me give you the clearest example of the problem that you're talking about. The United States Congress, both Democrats and Republicans, in complete unanimity, have 3 times in the last 17 years tried to ban content that would be harmful to minors on the internet. And each time, a very conservative, pro-family, pro-children Supreme Court has told the Congress, we're in a First Amendment country, and your law can't pass constitutional muster. This is a great challenge for every internet service provider out there. The core issue here is, what should responsible businesses do to make America's internet safer for its communities, families, and businesses?
But you would agree that prostitution is illegal activity?
Absolutely,
okay.
Of course.
So if prostitution is being marketed on your site, is that something you are concerned about, or is that something that's where the business is?
Well, as you know very well, Andrew.
I mean, why not to say, look, we're a website that markets prostitutes.
Well,
so what?
Backpage and the Village Voice are unapologetic that they post adult services as they have for 50 years. There has been crimes and there have been predators since long before there was an internet and long before there were newspapers. These are a factor of the landscape, and criminals will misuse cell phone services, common FedEx and other kinds of businesses, and the roads of our community to commit their crimes.